and welcome to another episode of Coffee With. I'm Jim Gorman, Director of Internal Communications and Media Relations at Mizuho Americas, and I'm honored to be joined by Karen Haycox. Karen is the CEO of Habitat NYC, the New York chapter of Habitat for Humanity, an internationally admired organization that transforms lives and communities by building and preserving affordable housing for families in need. Habitat NYC has been serving New York for 35 years and is a primary Mizuho Foundation grant recipient. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. I'm happy to be here.
I think that when most people think of Habitat for Humanity, they think of home building, but you take a much more holistic approach to community building and neighborhood building. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think that's true. I think, it's kind of the blessing and a little bit of a curse of Habitat in that people think of us as very simply single family house building. And that might be true in some markets, but in New York City, we do that, but we also do multifamily, multi-story, and we also look at holistically the impact that we have on communities around preserving existing affordable housing. We talk about how to engage volunteers from across New York City, whether that's in actual building or in advocacy activities. We're also a lender. So it's the beauty, I think, of the Habitat model is that we are who you think we are.
Right.
And we're so much more.
And you talked a little bit about volunteerism and trying to get people involved. I read somewhere that your parents got you involved in volunteerism at a very young age. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I initially, I think many years ago when I started with Habitat, people would say to me, what drew you to volunteerism? And I would very, sort of grandiosely say, well, I was just drawn to it and I really wanted to make a difference. But as I got a little bit older and took stock of that, I thought back to my parents, and they really, every Sunday of my youth, we were involved with the local service clubs and doing Special Olympics barbecues and fundraising. And my parents were both Optimist Club International members and active in their chapter. And so I was really born to it, I think. It was never preached at me. I was led into it by example. So I'm grateful for that.
One of the things that people think about when they think of the face of Habitat for Humanity, they think about former President Jimmy Carter. Have you met him, and is he still active in the organization?
I have. It's my favorite question, and it is my favorite answer to my favorite question is to say yes. I'm honored and humbled to have been in his presence many times. Since I have actually worked on 14 of his annual projects. They are aptly titled the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Work Projects. As a matter of fact, I'll be building with him again in Nashville in October of this year. He is very active, even at 95 years old. He'll be 95 on October 1st of this year, even with a broken hip.
Wow.
He is still very active. He and Mrs. Carter, we've modified their duties a little bit, and he still is a very active and tough taskmaster and supervisor on site. I can attest to that.
So you've done a lot personally to draw attention to perhaps the underreported a problem of homelessness among the LGBTQ plus community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Thanks. Well, Habitat for Humanity in New York City, we work very hard to impact as many people as we possibly can. And housing itself is a continuum. So Habitat's sweet spot has always been in affordable homeownership because we really believe that what the poor need is not charity but capital, that they need a hand up, not a handout. And so we partner with our home buyers and homeowners to put them into an affordable home that they own. But increasingly in this complex market, we have stretched to look at other solutions. So we are exploring affordable rental in New York City. I feel strongly that Habitat has a role in providing affordable, decent, safe rental in New York City. And then as we look further, some of the more vulnerable communities, specifically coming out of the homeless community, are really without opportunities for safe, durable housing, specifically members of the LGBTQ community, of which I am also a member. And so you look at those seniors who potentially, if they get a housing solution, may be forced back into the closet, living next door to someone who perhaps isn't as accepting of their lifestyle. And they're forced into these untenable choices where they must take the housing that's offered to them, even though they're unsafe or cannot fully be themselves that much later in life. And that breaks my heart.
In closing, you're obviously trying to solve huge problems. What's your advice for people on how do you prioritize? How do you start to attack things like this? Like, what do you do?
Listen, I think there's a great parable. I think it's a parable, and it's of an older man walking down a beach, and there's thousands of the beaches littered with starfish, and he's picking them up and throwing them back in the sea one at a time. And a younger person goes by and says, well, I don't know what you're doing. You're not, making any kind of dent on the starfish population. And he said, yeah, but to this one, it means the world. And I kind of have that approach. If you look at maybe another analogy would be, we eat the elephant one bite at a time, but I like my starfish analogy. And I think I like that approach because it really says do what you can with the resources that you have to make the greatest impact possible. Habitat is very blessed to have a very strong name recognition and a strong balance sheet. And I feel called to do as much as we possibly can to serve as many as we possibly can in all of the ways that we can, so that to these people that we can help, it means the world.
Well, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for being with us today. And I know Mizuho is very, very proud to be a sponsor of yours.
Well, we're very grateful. And so, please, from my organization to your organization, we are so grateful. Thank you for your support. It means the world to us.